Right, we are back with Hot Take Point Made League of Legends Edition, Ignite in the hand there. It's also, by the way, just a very rarely used summoner spell at this point in time, isn't it? Because even this is one thing I don't like about League. Even carries take teleport. Why are we doing that? Take me back to the glory days of before 2018 when, real men like Alfari could stand in the top lane. They had no plan to teleport. They weren't even planning on leaving lane. What are you talking about? They would just stay there on guard, sir. They would battle. They would get that 3.75 CS extra in the lane than they're supposed to, which if you're just a Froggen fan, that's a win. That's sort of like 3 kills in a way. It's not in any way mathematically, but spiritually, that's a win. So anyway, we're back to bring our own little bit of heat to the scene. Don't worry, I've got a couple of fan takes that I will tease in as the episode goes on, and I'll tell you how you submit a fan take if you want to, but more on that later. Easier to bundle it all together. So first questions first, boys. Who actually has a hot take to start the show with? Who wants to open the ledger, as it were?
I've got a weird one, because it's actually something that's just been announced today.
Okay.
It's actually literally just was announced today, but I need to add to it. I actually think, I'm going to bring the premise, the WASD movement that Riot's just introduced for League of Legends is going to probably be one of the biggest effects on pro play, because it's going to allow basically people who previously had terrible movement or character control to kind of cheat in the game, and new players coming through are going to have movement that you've never seen before. Now, this is going to sound really, really weird, but if you've ever played an action RPGs like Diablo or something like that, probably the most famous one of all time is Path of Exile. Now, you would think that clicking, right? Okay, being able to click and move your character was better, but those guys actually managed to work out that if you have no turn time, which League of Legends doesn't, and that's a key detail,
yes,
and you then have to control where skill shots go, then if you WASD and you control skill shots with your mouse, you can actually have simultaneous motor skills you're able to basically move your character and shoot skill shots off in a way you weren't able to do, because you cannot make your wrist physically do the movement, then come all the way back over to then shoot the skill shot to the control the facing. So the WASD movement is actually going to be one of if people embrace it, and I think it'll be the junior, it's going to be one of the biggest changes in League of Legends. And you're going to have people who are going to be insanely hard to hit with skill shots, unnaturally hard to hit. It will look like Scripter's movement.
I think it's one of the worst changes that's ever been made to League of Legends. Personally, it's probably been a hot take, because everybody from the audience is gonna ask me, but Zab, why? It's more option, and more option means more opportunities. The problem with changing an interface, I'm gonna take a domino effect from Rocket League, a game I play a lot. So during the early first years of Rocket League, the players were asking for a bind to be able to rotate your car, to spin your car in one direction, left or right.
Okay.
With this addition of adding just this bind, they discovered that if they twist the car in one direction and flip the car in another direction, it does kind of a spin tornado. That's now the basic movement option and the most technical option across the game, and that has revolutionized the way players play Rocket League. And now we have a new thing where even these things are becoming analog in a way that you can twist your car in a very precise motion. When you change inputs, you change the very first pillar of a game. Whoever made a game in their life, the first thing you have is an interface. You take a platformer, it's can you move right with your D-pad, or is it an auto runner, jungle run, temple run, or something like this? Or can you move up to right? Is it an auto scroll? That's the same level of change. It's going from Mario, right, Super Mario Bros, to Jetpack Joyride. This difference is the same level of difference that's going to impact League of Legends. And I think after 15 years, if they do think it's going to bring back new players, I think it's a complete flow, because it's going to change everything. And it's going to kill the whole existing level threshold, meaning maybe tomorrow Chovy or Faker just doesn't adapt, and they become bad. And then it's going to be 2 eras of the game, which I think is terrible. So I think it's one of the worst change ever made by League of Legends.
By the way, I actually agree with the last sentiment. I was going to say the same thing. I actually think this has the potential to be really bad, potentially the worst actual league update in any context ever, including like broken champions on release or ults that don't work. Like the difference is this could affect all 10 players in the game. And one area I'll just quickly, briefly address here is I think Keire nailed the framing. You have to think about this from a MOBA context. You can't think of other games. Because if people don't know, I'm sure almost everyone in the modern day has played enough of an FPS game like Counter-Strike or Valorant or Quake or something to know that basically what we're talking about here is actually like the original movement tech that changed Quake and FPS games forever, because the key reason why WASD was insanely OP in the era when people first began using mice in these games is because obviously before that it's like League, you have to like run forwards, turn, then you start shooting someone, whereas the whole premise, anyone who's ever played an FPS game gets this, is if I can simultaneously strafe while using the mouse to aim at you, I can just be shooting you in the head the whole time while I'm actually moving on your screen, which makes it harder for you to track me. So at the same time, I'm putting all my shots into you, but essentially I'm like walking around you if you're not doing the same thing. So it's essentially the entire premise, if you play a modern FPS game, of all the like jiggling on the corners. That's all AD movement, basically, like left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right movement. That's the problem is, though, that made FPS games better because of what it did to the movement and the dodging. And by the way, you want dodging in FPS games because the guy already has shit hot hand-eye coordination. He already was aiming everything with the mouse. The problem here is, like he says, first of all, Dota is already a different game because the turn speed is so slow. It's actually one of the things that makes Dota really fascinating as a game to me. It's why I actually always preferred it over League, is that you simultaneously have all these mega OP elements, but then you have these like bottleneck things like the movement that like stop it becoming like too much slow. That's what actually like paces a team fight out. That's what things like when you use the BKB also decides when it happens. Like, League to me is way more of a game. It's the reason why I think in League you've never gotten close to what they have in Dota. You know, there's a stat in Dota where there's been a load of internationals where like every single hero was picked in the whole thing. You know, in League that'll never happen. You'll never have a Worlds where, even with Fearless, you'll never have a Worlds where every champion is picked. That's cause League to me is way more of like I'll just say, like, I think like a fragile game. For me, is the second things become OP. I mean, the joke is, the real reason you had to force Fearless draft on everyone is because otherwise everyone just wouldn't stop picking the 3 OP champions in their role. They would just do that no matter what. Even, by the way, if it didn't fit their playing style, they'd still pick like a Scion or a fucking some garbage that they don't even like to play. They would still do it just because they want to win the game and it's OP. So the problem I have is I think this will become the most OP thing in League of Legends. And I'll briefly explain why. Because think about all the skills that you actually have to learn when you come into League. Like, remember, I came from like different, much more complicated esports, and what I had to realize was it means that even though the skill expression is more limited, it actually allows the game to be balanced out, though, in a way that like certain champions as a result can be like simple to use, but you make them really strong. Then you make the one that's like really skilled, so it's like more like you have to get more of the spell rotation off, like an Akali or something like that. So the real problem you're going to run into immediately is think about all the mechanics that we all think are OP. Like, I can, by the way, the first role I will immediately predict is broken tomorrow is AD carry. Because AD carry is all the orb walking, that's the click back and forth. Why am I clicking back if I have WASD movement? I'm not ever clicking back at that point, Keire. I'm just clicking a click character onto you constantly while moving. Like, you've literally just made every person in the world now can do like peak ruler orb walking, which I used to think, by the way, is one of the most impressive things about ADC you'll ever see. Think about Ruler when he would play Ashe like 3 years ago. You could never get to him. Like, he was doing the perma slow and you walk like this backwards, getting every auto off and cancelling it at the last second. It was unbelievable. Now, that's just pressing like backwards key and just clicking on their fucking character. Like, that's going to suck. And then similarly, just like the orb walking angle, that mean also, by the way, generally, champions that kite people, well, everyone will be able to kite now. It'll just be ridiculous. Like, everyone will have like 85% good kiting as far as I can tell.
The best character in the game is going to be Syndra. Like, Syndra
pretty good
got the most OP passive in the whole game because she can actually like move while landing skill shots, and she has the most range. So she suddenly, with this motion, become the best character in the game.
And you've got people like Ezreal who are like massively thing. And here, let me just point something out to you. People take like Ruler being able to orb walk for like granted, as like all ADCs can do that. Right. Go watch the World's Final, Game 5, Elk, mid lane, and the final team fight of the game that changes the outcome of the World Champion. Look what he's auto-attacking. He's auto-attacking minions, because he can't control his mechanics. So he's panicking, right? Okay, and he's A-clicking rather than A-clicking area rather than A-clicking onto specific champions. And as Keire, he shoots 8 auto attacks into minions rather than actual heroes in the deciding fight that decided the world champion. So do not take it for granted. It is not as like what Ruler does and what Uzi was able to do, and people like Doublelift had to train themselves to do to get themselves out of bad habits, right? Do not take it for granted. It is very hard when you're under that pressure. Well, if you have the WASD movement, it's literally just like the old Cogmos script. When the Cogmore could break the attack speed, it's just a twiddle of the fingers and the person just starts gliding back. So there's so many different issues there, and I don't think the domino effect is going to be crazy.
I'll give you an example. One of the most famous moments in Faker's career that made everyone think what a god was when he did that amazing sidestep on the Cassio ult against Nagny in that Katie Rolster Summer Final 2015. Everyone would just skip the foot. No one will ever get hit by a Cassio ult in theory, like, because he can just move while still clicking stuff. Like, to me, certain champions now just don't work in the game. Also, like I say, by the way, how OP would you actually have to make like Garen's abilities for him to be able to be picked at this point in time? You know what I mean? Surely you just kite him forever. Like, you'd never get forced close to this guy. Yeah, there's so many characters I feel like are just done tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Especially anything melee. Like, good luck. Good luck with it.
I'll be surprised unless Riot put in like limitations, like actual engine limitations of the control, and on purpose make the control bad. Unless you're playing something like Callista that specifically requires, because it has a unique movement set, it actually requires like the mouse portion of it. I'm not sure how Riot will balance it, because there will just be certain champions where it'll be like, yeah, you to optimize for this champion, you learn WASD movement, and basically that. From
this actually literally reminds me of the main thing that I don't like about StarCraft 2, which is in StarCraft 2, they, by the way, intelligently realised you'll never get casuals to play this game if it's like hard fucking work and mental labour just to produce like units that farm. Like, if just making the workers and making them go to the worker patch where it requires micro and me constantly reminding my brain, a bit like checking the minimap as a jungler in League, like check the workers, now back to the check the workers, that's not fun for a normal person. But the problem is, if you've ever watched high level Brood, it makes the game way better, unfortunately, because essentially you actually do want top players to sort of have some of their mental bandwidth used up by some of these things. So similarly, even though in the short term it's going to sound awesome for a casual fan, they're going to go, brilliant, now I can kite and play Vayne, this is awesome. But what they're not realising is it was actually a good thing that someone like Ruler had to do a million insane mouse clicks that were really like coordinate the timing. As I was saying, by the way, it's not like everyone had already matched that skill. It's like we're just giving it to everyone now. No, it was still, you could see the difference between a Ruler and a Jackie Love and a fucking, and like Super in the LEC. You could see a difference between these players, you know what I mean? So I actually do think, sadly, it's one of those ones where people in the short term will think it's good, but I actually think in the long term it's bad. I actually think one of the best things about League was, even though it's considered a less skilled game, they clearly had not ever hit the cap of like skill expression. You could still do a lot of amazing things. In fact, you could argue that's why the modern generation of League pros are so amazing, because they've actually put in like 10 plus years to this game. So the level of execution they're on is unbelievable. But I think this will make it worse. It's only a small point, but I think it's a good one, Keire. I agree. All right, Zaboutine, do you have one? Do you have one on deck?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hot take that I even didn't dare to say in France, because French fans will absolutely kill me.
What's it about Kami Corp then? Come on, hit me with it. What is it?
Of course, man.
Oh,
like,
come on.
What do you expect? I said France,
yeah,
and I say I didn't dare. Okay, so recently, if you watch the games from Carmine Corp, there is a little question mark about Vladdy's early laning. I'm not even speaking about like his chat drama or things like this, but he doesn't seem to be on par with what he used to be at the beginning of the year. And Carmine Corp, while being one of the most dominant team in Europe, looks much more like the team it was last year in summer. So my take is, I do think at the current state, right? Not saying the whole year.
Come on, he's going to put Nisqy in or something. Come on. Oh, yes! Right? He's going to put Nisqy in. No, why? Come on, hit me with it. Hit me with it. Come on.
It's just because it's.
This is going hot take. Come on.
No, but I mean, we have to do it, right?
Sure,
like the Frenchmen have to bring the French substitution. I do think that in short term it will be a strong upgrade for Carmine Corp, because both side lanes are like smurfing so hard.
Okay.
Right now, if you look at side lanes from Carmine, Kana is really like, it's a dictatorship in the top side. 2v2 bot side wins most of the time, and Targamas starts to play ranged champions, meaning that they get even more prio. And it's such a shame to see Karmine kind of struggle with Yike, because mid is taking 15 CS at every match, and you feel like it's Camilo in the mid in an early game. So with Nisqy, who's pretty good at laning and especially moving, I think the gameplay of Karmine would be much more dynamic and more effective. On long run, I think it's better to get Vladdy, but I do think short term, if they want to be the best they should sub in Nisqy. Opinion, guys.
You French people do just hate yourself. Why would you do it to yourself, man? Like, why? First of all, why do you even think about it? And then second of all, like, that idea even like action in it is like a completely different thing. Like, it's madness. It's like, okay, the version of Nisqy that we've seen last wasn't even playing the role you want him to play. When he was playing that role, he wasn't even good at laning. The actual person who gains the most from the idea of putting Nisqy in is as if you get the prototypal jungler's best friend Nisqy, and Yike, like, he helps out Yike. And is able just to allow Yike to, like, open the map up even more for Kana and Kalist. You know what I mean? He just enters the server as another supportive element to the team, and they run it like that. That's the upside. Like, that's like the good version. The downside version is you then just have a worse carry player than Vladdy, who loses all the same lanes that Vladdy's losing, and then he doesn't have any champion pool utility, because the last version of Nisqy we've seen, he was attempting to play ADCs mid, Tali, and Azir. And then that's not going to last that long. That's just not going to last that long. I will say, I think there's lots that Nisqy could teach Vladdy. I would just prefer, like, you know, I just prefer Nisqy not on my team teaching. No, like, you know what I mean? Not in the server having to teach Vladdy. You know what I mean? Just keep him as he is for now. Nisqy's in the perfect role for the moment in his career.
The problem I have with this take is this. It actually is very much you with your coaching hat on here, Zaboutine, because this is more of sort of a coach's change, where if you notice, the premise isn't like Nisqy is better than Vladdy. That's not even a point you attempted to really even make. It's more like, here's what he would potentially do for the rest of the team, and so if the overall net is a plus, then it's worth it, even if, you know, you might look silly doing this on paper. I would say that's like a classic coach's way of thinking about the game. I don't think it's totally wrong. Like, if I only think of like what Nisqy could do for other people on the team, then immediately I actually think he could make them more powerful, like you say, and especially in a way Vladdy does not right now. Like, the most obvious thing he would do is, guess what? Yes, if you look, top and ADC are contender for best in their role in this team, mate, he would just be diving their lane all day long. Like, it'd be him and fucking Yike, and you could just roll the game for these guys and accelerate the match, which, by the way, I don't hate that idea. This is a team that already still relies on, like, we win late game team fights. Like, why get into that scenario? Why not just be ahead early in the game? Then you would just destroy a mid game. There wouldn't even be a late game. So I don't hate that angle. The problem obviously is, as Keire is sort of hinting at, we are doing the Hylissang thing again here, which, by the way, is very much coach thinking again. Coach thinking goes, when you take someone out of an environment where they underperformed, a different environment also can sort of resurrect who they were or change their profile of who they are. So the real problem here is, this is just another Hylissang Nisqy sort of like, yeah, but if I put him in a different team, maybe I get some of that old magic back. The real problem, I know what Keire means. The real problem is, I'm just remembering the last time I saw Nisqy play both support and mid lane, and it wasn't good, unfortunately. And even worse, I actually do think the last few years, and that's why it's one of the people that's actually, I don't have him on my shows, you know, he's not somebody who wants to be in my media, fair enough, but I actually don't know what he thinks about the game. I've always wondered, actually. I actually do feel like that lineup when they had El Yoya and him, and they clearly had friction, I feel like that sort of like burned him out for League or took his joy for the game or something, because he's never been as good since then for me, whereas I actually thought at the time he was still a very good player. Like, he would have splits domestically where he was like one of the best players. He was even at one point in time for real an MVP candidate. The only problem is, I don't know if we'd really get him now. And then the bigger issue is this. The reason why I like the hot take is because you even put the disclaimer on there that it is just a short-term move. As in, essentially, if the finals of the LEC were next weekend, then yeah, this move actually might even give you a better chance to win it. The problem is, the reason you also wouldn't do it, and why it's a hot take, Zaboutine, is because of the effect it would potentially have on Vladdy. Like, I'll tell you right now, if I had to speculate, again, this is pure speculation, I don't know this person at all, the key detail is actually the nationality and the culture, which is you have a team of French-speaking people and players, and Yike, who, by the way, is super passive, chill guy, you know, doesn't seem to bring any drama. And then you have put in a Greek mid laner. Now, look, Don't think every Greek person's like forgiven, but I'll tell you what, they've all got a little seed of it in there, boys. I can tell you, even Compa's a bit spicy. Every Greek person I've known has that little bit of spice in them, and that will manifest a bit like it does with the Balkan players, as you're going to be a bit more disagreeable, maybe, or you're a bit more sort of like, I do shit my way. Because the problem I have with this topic is this. I also don't hate it in the sense that, like, it is the best thing about sports, that even if you are a really good player, like he is, there's always someone in sports on the bench who can replace you if you don't play the way you need to for the team. But we don't really have that in league. And the reason why, in a way, I don't hate the move, but I wouldn't want it to be really like a long-term move, is because you are also with this guy. To me, he's a rookie still, mate. I don't care that he played his split last year. You're still trying to actually develop this guy, which means things like his attitude and how he plays with the team and what style of play. Because I actually think he's one of the rare players in the modern day, by the way, I've actually watched play solo queue. Like, I've had a few times I was streaming and I wanted to raid someone, and I saw him and I thought, it's a neutral play, he's never flamed me, so I raided him and I watched him for a while. And mate, he is a very talented player, I have to say, in solo queue. And actually in solo queue, he also plays fuck tons of champions, mate. He just plays whatever he wants. So I also get the sense it's probably some sort of an attitude, like, mismatch with him and the rest of the team now. Like, I get the feeling he's not like your system mid laner, you know, who just does what you want. I imagine he wants to play the champions he wants to play and play the game the way he wants. And the issue right now is sorry, mate, of the 3 carry roles right now, Keire and Kalista better than you, so we can't play the game around you all the time. And you're just not that good in LEC, so I get why you set it up that way. I still wouldn't do it, though. Listen, the Nisqy part's it's a bridge right? Too far. Yeah, it is. It's a hot take. It's a hot take.
That said, I think you guys, on the Nisqy situation, I think he still was first of the summer split last year in regular season. He didn't play well in BOs, but I do think that his style of laning, where he trades his HP to be more available and play just with tempo and doesn't really try to deny, is really bad internationally, because like top mid laners do that at the same time as like playing the lane. But I do think domestically it's a very powerful playstyle. But I'm okay with the fact that we don't make the move, but that was my hot take.
Okay. Right, I actually want to do a fan hot take now, because this one is actually a rare time where the fan didn't just like say a stupid take and then a bunch of stupid reasons. This is actually like, they've sort of done like a full lawyer angle here. They've gone really deep on it. So Nadnerb, and by the way, if you would like to submit your fan hot take, then what you have to do is you subscribe to the Last Free Nation Discord. There's a channel, LOL Hot Takes or whatever. Look, we don't promise we will read them out and or answer them, but we take a couple each time. Nadnerb says, listen to this, Beryl is not only not the GOAT support, he isn't a top 10 support of all time. He's only ever had one good split of individual play in summer 2020. Other than that, he's been mediocre at best, including being the reason 2021 Damwon did not win MSI. His bot lane is weak side on every team because of his play. He's never been a top 3 individual player on any of his teams for a whole tournament, which includes mediocre teams like 2023 DRX, where he was arguably the worst player in LCK. Also, he's known as a macro genius, but none of his teams have consistent macro and are not known for their macro, unlike a support like Mako, where all of his teams play similarly. Instead, all of his tournament wins come off individual play of solo laners. And so, by the way, in case we then say, like, well, who are your top 10 spots? He does give, like, a massive list. And by the way, aside from the odd one, like, he gives a list of, like, Keire, Mako, Ming, Mata, Madlife, Gorilla, Crisp, Delight, Mickey X, Hillasang, and then he even says you can put other people like Lehens and stuff like that in there. So, essentially, the hot take is, forget the idea, like, obviously it's a pleb take to say Beryl's the GOAT support or whatever, but his take is that he's essentially, like, mega overrated. It's just accomplishment. He's not even top 10 support of all time. Thoughts, gentlemen?
So that man lived and dies by his nationality. That is Beryl.
I think, you know, there's a lot of people that just watch games. They never really watched a whole game without the camera like panning left and right, because that's what the broadcast does, unfortunately. So they don't understand really the mind process of a lot of things that are happening within the game, and just people don't watch professional games, but just looking at the minimap for 25 minutes, the way some coaches or analysts do. I think Beryl is this caliber of player that has like, he has a lot of bursts of very like genius ideas about the game, like spontaneous, like holes of tempo and vision in the opponent's, you know, gameplay, or just like staying in the bush for long or trying to fake recall. There's a lot of like I would say drunk. How do you say like drunk man kung fu? I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know,
drunken master
style
kung fu, whatever. Yeah,
right. Like there's a little bit of that
Yeah.
into his gameplay,
I like the analogy.
if you try to like take the standards grid of rating for players, he's not consistent first, right? He's not consistent. The way he plays cannot be consistent. So the angle by which people argue that he belongs to the top 10 supports ever is he's what he brings to the table while having his low lows is much better than a lot of top support counterparts like On that don't have this genius to win games, to find these holes into the enemy defense, even against the best teams. And I do believe that having a creative player cannot be consistent, and he's like kind of the epitome of the creative support. You have Keire that has like insane mechanics, could be mid laner, so everybody's gonna compare him to Keire and be like, yeah, but Keire does that. Yeah, but after Keire, nobody else does that. And if you look at all these creative supports, I do think that Beryl had the pick. If you look at Lehens, you look at On, you look at, Sword Art at some part of his career, I do believe that like he has the highest highs. And for this reason, I think he should be rated in the top 10. But every time you'll pick a support that has this kind of like genius profile, like Hylissang whatsoever, you have the lowest lows, and I think the highs of Beryl offset the lows, whereas some for other supports, I don't know, like for instance Lehens in my book, I don't think it does.
Okay.
Right, okay. Right. Beryl is basically just a guy who won things because of his nationality and is like exposition to like who he played with. Like, okay, take Mata. Mata had a period of time where he played with like the best players ever, like Dandy, Daddy, won a world championship with them, right? He then also went and fucking won the LPL with one of the worst ADCs ever, a rookie Zhao Hu, who else? Who's his jungler as well? A rookie LW, like MLXG, like it was one of that RNG team. By the way, it didn't have Uzi on it at this time, and he beat EDG, right? And he literally took macro and like Korean gameplay, and he like brought it to like the LPL. Like those are not the same. Like those are not the same levels of achievements. Like, and the problem is any of the folk that you take there, you can't really compare them. Beryl like wouldn't have won anything of any note at all. Apart from, like, take the DRX team, for example. He's fucking playing with Deft, man. Like, everyone bangs on in that team about, like, King and Zika on that team. The best player, relative to everyone else, it's like Zika was streaky at the Worlds, but the best player's Deft. I'm sorry, it just is. Like, are we all just going to pretend the guy that's got the Infinity Gauntlet of achievements was just lucky across 5 different teams? Is that what we're going to do with Deft here? Beryl is just a guy that was lucky to have just played with, like, a ridiculous plethora of talent. He's like a fine support player. My issue is, okay, no one, I have never heard anyone from LPL or LCK go like, oh, Beryl's actually really, like, actual, like, players and stuff. Beryl's, like, sleeper, OP, like, one of the best players. Players from the LPL and teams from the LPL genuinely thought Lehens was the best player on Griffin. Not Chove, not Tarzan, not Viper. The LPL genuinely thought, for funny reasons, you can see why that being the case, but they genuinely thought Lehens was actually like the player on Griffin that made them beat like them when they scrimmed. And so like, and you know, I'm not saying that as like a point of like providence, but nobody ever looks at like a team with Showmaker, Naguri, and Canyon and goes, yeah, Beryl, the guy that like sets up for the Ziggs and Zoe Qs, he's like the superstar. He's the cool thing about Beryl is he plays into like his character, and he's like he'll like kind of like lives up to like the meme of his. So he's like a very like marketable like player in terms of like his like storyline. But like that's just kind of like what it is. Like his play independent of who he played with, I don't think would have ended up anywhere. I think he's like one of the most like blessed players ever. I don't hate him. I think he was given a bunch of like opportunities and he made the most of them. That's the sick part. But not in terms of like actual quality of play.
I think I'm more in the Zaboutine camp on this one. Like, I acknowledge the overall premise. Like, I agree with the overall premise. He's not even close to the GOAT support player. Like, to me, he gets this one consideration, which is, I think, in all GOAT discussions, you have to put all the people who fit the initial criteria, and then you remove people until you have one person left. So he would actually get to initially be in the conversation just from having the Worlds and Championships, right? That alone is actually, it's a bit like Bengi. The resume gets you in the conversation. It's just, for me, you're the first person eliminated period because of things like how good, like, were you actually better than for just 1 year? How many times were you actually an elite player? How many times, like he says, were you impactful on their team components? Here's the thing, I don't hate completely. Like, I do think one thing people are doing here, it's the same with Bengi actually, is I agree with you, Zaboutine. If you go to a very specific time, maybe it's only a year, maybe it's 1 or 2 splits, they do have periods in their career where they were actually elite at their position. Like, the real problem of all time with Bengi is, I'm almost certain that guy had like a secret RSI issue or something, because bro, that like first year or so, he was really good. Like, there was even like, he would even show, funnily enough, like when they would sub him back in, glimpses of being good for a game or so. His real problem was he couldn't maintain it, and then seemingly over the years, from seeing Faker win without him and then seeing Faker's career without him now, it just more looks like he also was sort of like piloted by Faker to some degree, and he was just synergizing with Faker. I mean, if anything, like the discussions we've had in the past, Zaboutine, if anything, hasn't Order just proven that, like, actually, if you're even more mechanically skilled player and you just do everything Faker does and follow him around the map, yeah, you have amazing fucking results. You can win a lot of world championships doing that. It turns out more people can win world championships doing that with Faker. So I think it's similar with Beryl. I do think he had some periods, if you go really early on in the Damwon period, where he was very good. And by the way, that's why we all used to flame the AD carry, not Beryl, actually. He was more like later years we flamed him. But the problem we also have with him is, again, it's like other people that won the world championship then fallen off. Like, he did fall off really hard, though, I think, after that. And he has had years since where he is just dining out on his resume and his name being Beryl. And the fact that also, another detail about him is, he has some sort of weird, like, swaggy persona for some bizarre reason as well, where he sort of almost entered that meme territory where people like the fact that he's sort of this bizarre character. Because I also agree, this is where I differ from Keire a little bit. I also do agree with you, Zaboutine. I actually think Hylissang's a good shout, because to me, what he actually has in his game was, here's the problem. You know when the fan guy said, everyone says he's like a macro genius or whatever, but his teams don't have great macro. That is absolutely true, by the way. If you go look at almost any of his teams, it was all just fucking ABC paint by numbers macro. And in fact, sometimes they just weren't even good at it. But that's because when he says it, I don't think he was ever a macro genius, but I do understand why you could call him a genius though, because I do think he makes, put it this way, it's why I actually think last year's KT was a perfect team for him, because that team could never just play straight up league and beat you. But if you allow them to do stupid ass Pioshik Beryl bullshit then you actually will win some games. Like, I'll even invoke Monty's most hated attempted style configuration from 2015. Remember Unicorns of Love, where they were like, we're playing chaos style, and it's like, you're not really, you're just making like bad high risk, like medium reward plays. But it turns out actually, if everyone else plays like proper League of Legends, that does get you upset wins. Actually, that will just like win you, because remember, Unicorns of Love really were doing stupid shit like, let's play fucking TF and flash gold card at like the first level that you can do that on. Like, that's a game losing play if you miss the gold card. But if you win it like solo queue, yeah, you can have a fucking hilarious time after that, aren't you? So, but I think Beryl was more in that camp. I know what you mean, Zaboutine. He actually is more of an artist than like a scientist and a professional player, because he was always trying some like outrageously ambitious mental play. And the point is, look, that won't actually win you very many games in League of Legends, but I'll tell you what, it will win you some games though that no one else can win. That's why I actually like the Hylissang comparison. I get what you mean. But with all that said, the real problem I have is if you're doing the top 10 of all time, I did my own little list while you guys were running it through. He also might break in a man as well, because the problem is, even when this guy did his list, once you get to the bottom of that list, you were also getting people where they either just had like, they were on great teams, or they were just like pretty good for a year or two. Once you get to like numbers 8, 9, and 10, you don't really have people there who were like the best player like Mako for like 9 years or something. Like, you've already thinned the herd. So he probably just went too far saying not top 10. Not top 5's a better angle, because I think everyone can agree with that. But I'm with you, Zaboutine. If I had to really do top 10, I'd probably still, just for if I remember the good years, I'd probably still sneak him in at like 8 or 9 or something. He could probably get in there, you know. Especially because you notice this guy did himself sneak both Mickey X and Hylissang on the list. It's like, listen, bro, I might give you Mickey X. I don't know. Hylissang, is he really his whole career better than? I don't know about that. That would be an interesting debate, actually, I have to say.
By the way, I'll give you an interesting angle. I remember there was a year, it was 2019, okay? And Hylissang was the Western player who was in most people's top 3/top 5 going into Worlds that year.
Okay.
Beryl, relative to support, and every other player has never been anywhere near that. Like, I don't think Beryl would ever have been maybe in the top 10 players like in the world.
Sure.
But like for that 1 year, Hylissang was in, by the way, like legit people like Kelsey Moser, like, literally had Hylissang as the second best player in the world in 2019 or something, I'm pretty sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when everyone does, like, those lists at that content period, there was a lot of people had Hylissang at 2019. And by the way...
I believe if you remember, I think summer split 2019 was where a lot of people wanted him to be the MVP, if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it was balling, yeah.
I'd say, just to add something, I think there is 4 quadrants, right? There are the people that are good and look good. There are the people that are good and look bad. There are the people that are bad and look good. And there are the people that are bad and look bad, right? I do think Beryl is part of the players that actually are good but look bad. And I'm okay with people not realizing that, like, some of the things he does are, like, good. I lean on your end as well, Keire, that, like, he was with very good players. But I think that you need to be a very good player to play with very good players and still win. Like, I've seen plenty of very good players that were playing with Inters and didn't make it. And on longevity, I mean, Imp is part of, like, this guy that fell off in China. Marine fell off in China. There's a lot of players that fell off in China. So, but I do think he's part of it. And Hylissang is the same thing. It's like, he's good, looks bad. Most of his like, late part of his career was like, he's bad, look bad. But most of his career was he's good, looks bad. And I do think some players will have this reputation, but they're still good at the game in a very different, like, framework.
By the way, the other reason as well, I also don't discount even some of the, like, weirder years of his career, is the term that you would use in English is he also does have an aspect to his game that is talismanic. Like, notice how, as much as I agree, they never have great macro. It's also the reason I always made the point back in the day, it never seemed to dawn on anyone. If everyone used to tell me Bjergsen was the captain of TSM, and I used to say, then can you please explain why when they go international, they have no macro? They just play normal, like, go to the Baron League. That should be a minus against him if he's the one making the calls. Well, on the other end, I have to say, like, every single Beryl team becomes a Beryl team. It becomes this weird idiosyncratic squad where they do have this crazy upset potential that otherwise they wouldn't have. And so here's the thing, that can't be totally imaginary. You know what I mean? Like, there must be something there. It's just, it's manifested in a way where it's sort of a bit hidden. But put it this way, the ripples felt by Beryl being in a game are present. And also, by the way, as an aside, this doesn't count for being top 10, but that whole thing of, like, that he became a meme in a fucked up way adds to his aura, as the kids would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know,
100%. Yeah.
I mean, the joke is, he one thing I actually appreciate about him, unlike some of the people I think are overrated, like the Bengies and the Wolves of the world, they don't ever seem like they ever embraced the meme angle. Bro, I could actually see Beryl for real doing, like, his own, like, meme version of that thing where being at World's Finals, like, threw that jacket off, like, I'm here, motherfuckers, like, get out my way. Like, that's how he plays. He plays like he actually thinks he is the best support player of all time. So in that way, I actually sort of fuck with that. I like it. But then I like the take, though. As I said, it's a pretty good fan take, actually. He tried to, like, give his whole case there, and he even sort of preempted the obvious question. He must have seen the CS one, because it's a notorious thing, by the way, on the CS hot take, that Kassad always goes, this guy isn't even top 5. So then you always just go, well, who's in your top 5? And then you realise he actually hasn't bothered calculating it. It's like, gets really awkward, like, oh, shit. Like, so anyway, thankfully, this guy didn't make that mistake. He gave us the whole list, even though he did slip in all those Western players. So now, that is actually a perfect time, boys, for a segue for me to tell you my hot take. Because my hot take is actually about this exact concept, which is, you guys nailed it there. One of the most interesting things about League of Legends is that because the Western players, and especially in past years where MSI had a very, very limited playoff format, and essentially it was just like you lose to either the LPL or the LCK team and you play one best of 5, when you had essentially talent siloed in their regions, the reason why there are so many notorious editions of the famous LOL esports top 20 players to go to Worlds, or as you say, Kelsey Moser or Veteran or LS or whoever, picking players in the modern day, it would be something like Inspired. Maybe back in the day, they might have picked, again, Hylissang, Mickey X. You know, they always have these players where essentially their ranking goes, look, I am going a little bit off, like, projection here because I've only seen them play lesser opposition in the West, but I actually think this guy might be as good as either, like, an elite Korean player, or the craziest ever is where you think they're, like, as good as the best Korean or Chinese player, right? Along these lines, if you think of the last few years, my hot take goes like this. I think that the reason why you don't hear the discussion about the gap between the West and the East, you notice that topic isn't a thing anymore. Even the casters don't do it on their show anymore, even though that used to be, well, the number one go go-to topics on Riot broadcast. I think the reason you don't get that gap thing anymore, it ties into this, because think about the last 3 to 4 years, right? Beyond Caps, who just automatically gets that status from fans because people remember his great games. And by the way, I think he's included in this. I don't think he does play at an elite level internationally. I think it's actually been years since, maybe like you could go back to MSI last year. That's about it. Aside from that, you very rarely actually do see Caps like go head-to-head with the best Asian mids and go, fuck, if I had the name plates turned off, he could be just as good. Like, the real sleeper dark secret of Western League now is that whole shit of like, hey, but we are Frogger and Bjergsen and fucking Doublelift and Forgiven. That is some shit from the 2010s, boys. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. In the modern day, notice how the only players we actually put in that category either are fucking Asian, like Kana. That doesn't count. That doesn't. He is Korean. That doesn't count for us in Europe as a top laner. The only positions we're allowed anymore, boys, are the supportive ones. It's support and jungle. If you have an Elioya, maybe people believe he could do something amazing. Jankos. If you have Mickey X and Hillside, hey, maybe they could do something. We don't have any traditional laners that are actually comparable to the elite Asian. I think that's the area we've fallen behind the most. And what's funny is it ties into the first topic of the show. Part of its mechanics. Yeah, I'm sorry, there actually aren't many elite players at top ADC or mid who can lane like the elite Asians. And I even think mechanically, here's the difference. In a one fight in a game, they can pull, like Kalisk can pull off the mechanics of anyone. But the difference is, if I put him into a massive game, and I also put Ruler into that game, and then I put Viper into that game, can Kalisk really hang mechanically the whole time and do all the same clicks they do and keep his APM at 7? I don't know that they can. I think we're actually, there's a decent enough gap in all the major roles that essentially I think Western player level is carried by jungles and supports, because essentially what we're saying there is you've got a brilliant mind. Basically, we're not even saying like we're not notice the ones we're picking there aren't our mechanical gods. It's not like a self-made or a Raz, or it tends to be the Elioyas and the Mickey, someone who's going to do a brilliant play in the game, you know. So I think there's my hot take. I actually think in terms of like player level, there is a big gap between West and East.
What makes your shine take, your take shine, sorry, is the fact that the last time we had a European in quarterfinals was the time where the best player of Rogue at Worlds was actually Larsen. And I think that he was playing really out of his mind, which I think probably the last time he was playing out of his mind before he got the bag. I would say we could argue that the first year of Caps in 2017 was definitely not as good as the year 2018 in the LEC, and the first impression of Kalist still, like, he has to my eyes the benefit of the doubt, especially when I look at the opposition.
Oh, it could be one day,
Viper.
sure, yeah.
For the first experience, I think he can probably like become more consistent at his peak, like getting close to his peak more often. Aside for him, I do think Masu is probably a little bit because I'm gonna take as well like NA players. I think Masu is probably like a little overrated because he doesn't have the opposition to actually like improve. And yeah, I would actually agree with you. I think it's a really good take, because I think Inspired can be in the discussion, and Yoya can be in the discussion sometimes. Maybe Skewmon is gonna be part of it, but I can't really think of any top laner right now in Europe or in NA that's not Korean that will come into like the discussion for being an international.
But this way, you know, a lot of us for the last few years, because he's on G2, so he's always at the internationals, a lot of us obviously scrutinise Broken Blade. But I was even thinking about this Zaboutine. I was thinking, who am I putting instead though? Like, I agree, I don't think he's as good as like fucking Bane and stuff. But who is in the West? The joke is it's canon, he's Korean. Like, there isn't anyone like, is Whipple really that much better? Not really, you know.
Nako will become good, but it's the problem is, you have players like Nako that should become like better than Broken Blade, or at least like as good as Prime Broken Blade, but they're playing at Vitality. So you never get to see them because, you know, their characters go down before they can actually bloom and become top talents in the region. But I do believe that Nako is out there as a very good top laner. But I think your take is actually, I agree with you that I do believe, aside from Kalist, I can't point one player that I will put in the top 10 at its position coming into an international event from Europe. That's not a jungler or support.
I would actually go a little bit further. I actually don't think I don't think China produces players that are like anymore that are similar to like what Korea's got in terms of like depth and stuff like that. No, there's only two exceptions, and they play in the same team with each other, and they're both Black Swans. It's like Ben and Knight, and that's it. Like, and even then, Knight isn't Chovy. As much as I love Knight, He hasn't. I can never tell you.
So like Shanks doesn't get to be in the conversation. He's not comparable to the top mids.
Like he can be for like a period of time, but like and we'll see how long that time goes.
Okay.
Like Shanks went back to the LPL and he's not been the same player. He instantly dropped like a tier or tier and a half in terms of play. He went from maybe like A+, S, elite, and then now he's down like at A, maybe like B-. Like he's a contributing factor. Chovy hasn't dropped off. Chovy's just kept on chunking along. Like the Chovy train just keeps on going.
Okay.
And this is where it gets thing is like I think Jakulov is an insanely talented player. Is his game as well rounded as like Vipers and like Ruler? Like I think there is like a meaningful difference between the two. That doesn't mean Jakulov can't beat them, but I think it is meaningful that there is like a level like between the two of consistency. And if you go to the jungle, it gets worse. Kanavi and Tarzan are the best LPL junglers. Yeah, they're also Korean. And that does matter. Canyon, Korean. Like, the support thing was the closest. Mako and Ming really could stand up to the very best that the LCK happened. Yeah, they're not those players anymore. And then Korea came along and just blew everyone out of the fucking water like an atomic bomb. It was like, holy shit. Like, Korea spawned the second coming of Mata and Mad Life blended together again. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the only player who would genuinely, like, stand up to what's in the LCK would be like Knight, but the problem is Chovy exists, and like Knight is meaningfully not as good as Chovy. Like there is like a meaningful like difference. As good as Knight is, it's like because it's like that full thing of how many people do you put in S tier. Like what does it mean? You know what I mean? If you have 5, 6, 7, 8 people all in S tier, it's not really elite. Like to me, like yeah, you could put BDD, Chovy, and Knight all in the same tier. But I still tell you there's a meaningful difference between Chovy and the other two. You know what I mean? There is a reason when they play, there's a percentile like difference between them. And just to focus back on your point, Thorin, and this was a talking point that went round and round and round and round and round. It used to be hilarious. Like I remember watching Summer and Insight in 2015 when Doublelift was the 20th best player on you and Monty's last 1 year, right? And Imp was the second best player that year in 2015, right? The difference between Imp and Doublelift was like it was so insane. Like I don't even know like how high. I don't even know how high you could realistically like put like some of the players. I think some people are like overly generous, like with their positioning with some players. But when this is one thing that's true. When Western players are as good, I think the people get really scared to like advertise them as being as good, if you know what I mean. Like for example, Inspired and Elyoya, like I think people like hold back like too much. Maybe they're not as good as like Canyon and stuff, but then they're too scared to say they're better than certain people. Like in the LCK, like there's people that would like have a hard time maybe like admitting that like Inspired's better than Gideon. You know what I mean? Like LCK fans would struggle to hear that, but I would take that every single day of the week.
Right, here's the thing. We do not actually, it turns out, on this episode, have a sponsor, but we do have a reminder that there is merch. If you want to support LFN, we have our own shop. It's lastfreenation.shop. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. I'll just pick out 2 items. We have a mug. You have this black mug that has the LFN logo on it, so you can drink from that. Enjoy your hot tea while we serve it on this show with the hot takes. We've also got some really nice joggers, as you can see there on the right-hand side. They're actually like a really nice material. It's really soft. Put it this way, when Thorin logs off for the night and maybe partakes of the devil's lettuce, let's just say he likes to get comfy, doesn't he? He likes to be in his element before he starts tweeting out outrageous tweet threads that maybe go viral in history and, you know, cause all sorts of career damage. So if you too want to tweet out crazy shit, I don't know if those trousers help you, but you'll be comfortable while you're doing it. So if you'd like to support us, then, or any of your favourite shows and the creators on this network, then go to www.lastfreenation, all one word, .shop and buy our new merchandise. You can get LFN joggers, desk mats, mugs, and more. We ship worldwide with free shipping to the USA on all orders of $60 or more. Thank you to everyone who buys some stuff and supports LFN. Right, who has another take then, boys? Who has another one?
I've got one last one, right? Okay, and it's from Reddit, like scouring like the threads and stuff. We're reading it. Is that I genuinely think, and how hot it is, I think Scout and Peyz should make like a carry pack. I think they need to leave China. I think Scout and Peyz need to leave China. Okay. Right? and they need to make another great LCK team, preferably on Nongshim Red Force. If you put Scout
On Nongshim,
and
okay,
Peyz,
right, okay.
yeah, if you put Scout and Peyz onto Nongshim, you could have another great Korean team.
As in, we have to keep Lehens there and etc. You will keep the companies playing, right? Okay, right.
Yeah,
okay,
but you
right.
could have a genuinely another great like Korean team. And in doing so, you completely decimate the fact of there being another good LPL team, right, okay? And you restore and you keep Korean hegemony, because I need, and it's not a personal thing, I need to see Scout in the LCK at one point in my life. Like, I need to actually get to see Scout, and I've seen him in the LPL. He's done amazing things in the LPL, but this JDG roster isn't it's an absolute waste of time. They've genuinely went away and got Wank to be the support. Like, that guy used to be an ADC on IG, by the way. That was one of the people that ran down Rookie for a year. just think about that. They've got like a top lane player who's doing a Xiaohu cosplay, Xiaoju. I would challenge anyone in the comments to tell me something good about Xiaoju if any of you actually know who he is, because I watched this guy. The idea he gets to play with Peyz and Scout, I don't know why. So they should just leave. Apart from the money angle, they should leave, and they should, if these serious competitors, this team has no legs, and they should just return to the LCK.
Why not Rookie first?
Rookie's never going to leave China, man. Like, I could be a hot take.
But never going to leave China, man. Do you remember the Worlds? I don't even remember which drama it was, but it was a money thing. Like, just like you start by saying, yeah, he should leave if he's a serious competitor, and I think he couldn't compete at the World if he didn't pay, because he like.
That was
Scout.
Yeah.
I thought it was Scout.
Right, Scout. For Peyz, I don't know. Right, he's just young. Probably got like an insane offer from China. But I do not believe that Scout is the type of player that's gonna be like, yeah, I can be a top prospect in my region and get the insane pace of China, and I'm just gonna like take a plane to be like the 6th best mid laner in the LCK because my teammates are not gonna be as good as the ones in T1 and Hanwha Life Esports.
He'd be better than the 6th Zaboutine. He'd be at least the 4th.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if I look at the rosters, I think Genji, no matter who changes around them, they still be the best. Then you have Hanwha. I don't think like with Scout going in any team, they're like in danger. T1 is T1. So
no, on the 4th best team. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I thought you meant mid. Sorry. Yeah, I get what you mean.
No, but what I'm saying is then you have BDD, and maybe he can be better than Showmaker. So maybe he can become 4th, but it's not even sure, because I do believe that Showmaker with better teammates will probably have better showings. So
he's not gonna make worlds in GDG. GDG can't even win games, bro. GDG are what, 6th? They're gonna have to play off
the bag.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. It's like if my point is, yes, if you dream about a world where all the best talents in the world are playing in the same league, Scout and Peyz should definitely go back into Korea. But my question then comes, which was the one I asked you, is like, what about Rookie then? Like,
yeah,
if you have
problem with that
card,
one is
right? If I have one card in my back,
no, here's the problem.
I use the one for Rookie.
I know what you mean. You mean it just for like the pure novelty. The problem is the reason you don't use it on Rookie is it's like too late in his career. You know what I mean? You needed to do that like 3 years ago to make the Rookie one interesting. The difference is Scout could still actually have like the rest of the peak of his career. Like, I noticed one of the things, is one of the areas where I've had to learn like what people's strengths and weaknesses are. If you ever watch Summoning Insight, Yamato, because of how disappointing JDG's been this last split, always bangs on Scout. And what he forgets is like, bro, you know, he was like 2nd and 3rd team mid laner for like the first 2 splits. Like, he actually wasn't bad at all the games. It's just he got really bad now when JDG shit. No, the reason why I like the Scout angle better is because Scout actually, in theory, he went to Korea like this year or next, could still have like a solid 3 to 4 year career where he could be like an elite mid laner and actually compete for Worlds and LCK. That here's the thing, he might have got what made it a hot take is saying he has to join fucking Nongshim and just like pair up with fucking Lens or whatever. Like, I would just say it the other way. I would just say like, can't we have like an org like KT just actually just break the bank and bring him in and sign a whole bunch of other players and put like top fucking super team around him? Like, fuck just having an alright team. The problem is if he joins Nongshim, mate, that's comparable to the teams he's been on in China. China. I want him to actually get the real Faker treatment or Chovy and have a super team built around him. I want him to be on a team where he has like Zeus and fucking Delight and fucking sick players like this, not just good players, like actual cracked out players. Because I do think that is the big what if about Rookie's career. What people miss when they tell me like that Rookie wasn't that good, it's like, yeah, he played the majority of his career in China with scoffed rosters. In fact, my new take when people tell me Rookie socks is, all right, let's see if you even watch the games. Just please tell me Rookie's teammates each year of the prime of his career. Literally, do you know how many people would literally like not even get 75% of them? It'd be mental, bro. Like the one you just said there, they wouldn't know Kid, they wouldn't know Wink, they wouldn't know any, they wouldn't say Wayward, they wouldn't say Rich, they wouldn't say any of these people, Zuo, they wouldn't get any of these names. The joke is, they would just list off the IG that won fucking Worlds and then think they did something. It's like, yeah, guess what, dickhead? He was qualified to everything with that team. Like, yeah, I get that team was pretty good. So no, I think it's not a bad take. The problem is like, it's why it's the difference between what you want to happen in a fantasy world, Keire, and what Zaboutine is right. As far as I can tell, much like Rookie and Doinby, Scout is never leaving fucking China, mate. He's just staying there forever. It probably is true, that old thing that was rumoured 10 plus years ago, that you can't quite get all the money out if you get massive salary in China, and that's why it sort of incentivises you to stay in the country in some capacity. So I imagine he will become like a Rookie and a Doinby. He'll just be totally fluent in Mandarin in a year or two, and he'll just stay, mate. That's where the rest of his career will be, and he'll just play out the rest, which is sad, because I do think that what's weird about League is it's one of the games that Koreans have been the most talented in of all the esports games, but it's actually like not particularly maximized Korean success despite the fact they've won the most championships, because they've gone and carried all the other fucking regions. Like the joke is they're even responsible for like most of NA's best results is having like J or Lost Boy or something. Like, it's ridiculous. So I have always wondered the same thing, which is take any Korean that was ever world class in his role. I wish they just played their whole career in Korean. It's but as you're saying, it has to be for a good org, though. It can't be for, like, freaks or fucking DRX or something like, yeah, we're not doing that to them. We're not putting them in purgatory. We're just putting them on a squad where they play with all Koreans. Because I actually do think as well, by the way, the funny thing is, I would do Rookie just because I want him to have the same opportunities as Faker. But you could actually argue that the two more interesting ones would have been Scout and Doinby. Like, Doinby, by the way, would be very interesting. If he could speak 100% Korean to all the people, wouldn't he be some sort of, like, super mega version of what High used to be back in the day? Then obviously the Scout one's interesting because actually people do forget a lot of Scout teams have had pretty decent macro too, actually, and it looks like some of it comes from him. So I also feel like surely he would be more, I'd put it so here's the hot take, I think he would have a way more successful career resume than someone like Showmaker, for example. I'm not hating on him by saying that. For me, Showmaker's like his name is very applicable. I've always thought he was really good at like playmaking and doing some like insane shit on champions like Zoe or LeBlanc or something, but I've never seen him as like the macro genius or whatever. In fact, I always used to think him and Canyon, between the two of them, it's like, considering you two were supposed to be like the best jungle mid duo ever, you're kind of a bit fucking basic macro yourselves, aren't you? Like, where's all the fucking sick players? Like, the difference is, even though people won't like this because one team were chokers and one weren't, Scout Tarzan macro was fucking chef's kiss, except for at Worlds. The other two just had hands. So I don't mind this one. I don't mind it, actually. Shall we do one last take, boys? Shall we do this one last fan take that I've got for you? And then wrap the show after that? So here we go. Listen, the first one was more of the, interesting point. Ooh, let's ruminate. Lot to chew on there. This one is by Trockiu07. And they say, I believe that in the current state of the league, teams like GX and Fnatic could use Jankos to be much better than they are. So, okay, buckle up for this one. By the way, the joke is if Jankos himself was like listening with this on the background, he'd be like, what? Nani? Like, but anyway, let's listen. He goes, for GX, they seem to be lacking that voice of a reason with all their young carries. Look how he elevated Vetio, or Vetio, as Zaboutine would say. Jackie's is to me like Vetio 2.0. For Fnatic, they have firepower, but they lack someone who watches the lanes, covers for them, and plays good team fights on all no-carry picks. And someone who will actually back down instead of deadly engaging in entire game states like Razork does. It's all his words, not mine, Razork. I didn't say that, mate, even though it's true. Plus, no one manages big voices and personalities in the team like Jankos. He knows where to be and who to listen to. Even Humanoid would have been much better with with him. That's a fucking hot take right there, but okay. By the way, I like the way that's what we're doing to Jankos. Like, you just have to deal. You're the one who has to fix Humanoid. There you go, Jankos. Like, fucking hell. Anyway, the last thing he says is, of course, assuming he can get into decent form in LEC and underscore. So, okay, he has added a context there. He doesn't really mean the Jankos that I watched playing like Nord in the NLC and be like, Jesus, I'm just going to pretend these games didn't happen. He means if he could actually, get his form back up a bit and scrim a bit. But essentially, he thinks GX or Fnatic, this is the guy who could fix him. Thoughts, boys? It's certainly a take. It's certainly a take.
I think GX. I'm going to say it, okay. Fuck it, no, but I think GX could. Like, if I'm GX and I'm going to have this random fucking assortment of human beings, I would flip on Jankos because I'm not really losing much if it doesn't work out with Isma on my team. Fnatic's a different story. Like, the problem is the player that he's wanting Jankos to be, Razork has been that player on Fnatic, just not this specific Fnatic. Like, the lane coverage. The problem is he has a deficiency, right? But he has, like, an Achilles heel deficiency, whereas, like, Jankos has way more things to, like, make up for in terms of, like, the Razork already has. Like, champ pool, team fighting, just, like, basic mechanics, like, just how sharp you are. Like, Thorin will tell you, if you don't play, like, tier 1, it's, like, the ring rust, like, type thing. You don't, like, there's, like, a tempo and a pacing to, like, high level. It's like stage games. Scrims can never make up for stage games because there is, like, a beat and a tempo to like live playing, like an energy and rhythm to it. And they're the types of things that like I don't know, like if I'm GX I'd flip it every time. If Fnatic, I would just see this project. I don't want Fnatic to change anything else about this project. Please let this team just see it out like at least one split.
Where are you coming, Zaboutine?
Yeah, I mean, if you do watch the LEC games in detail, you're gonna see that what's currently happening is kind of the opposite. I think that the European teams have figured out most of the timings in the game where there is danger, and everybody's mostly respectful. I'm not saying everyone, but at the highest level, the teams are. The players are being respectful of these timings, and so what makes the difference between teams right now is execution. It's the ability to actually stand in river and be able to play your draft according to the strength of your champion, and not fumble these plays or having someone randomly picked because like he cannot space. Literally, like Noah lost 2 games for GX and has nothing to do with the early game. It's literally just Noah walking on mid wave and dying randomly to an Alistar without even like having to use flash to kill him. So that's much more like raw skill power, ability to anticipate skill shots, bait skill shots, posture aggressively without overextending, which is the very specific thing Jankos would not be able to do these days. Because the very reason Jankos started to be a little bit heavy for G2 and so on in his career is because while being good at finding options, because this never changes, just decision making, his ability to make a difference by executing the play that he has in his head was severely dropping. And I think that in a state where the LEC is literally just made by hands, like you look at Fnatic, they don't have good macro, they just play better. Same thing for KC that beat Koi and GX just because they have better teamfight players. I think putting Jankos and thinking he will solve anything is actually a little bit delusional, because this is not where the game is made nowadays. The only player that still finds options like Jankos used to do and put his team ahead while losing team fights is Sheo.
Oh,
and I don't
knew you were
think
going to say Sheo.
Right, because it's very close. It's very alike in the term of in playstyle, and you see Sheo still mis-executing teamfight and losing games because he's not able to have the hands to actually like take his team to the Nexus while being like far ahead on bruisers. That clearly like double downs on the fact that Jankos wouldn't make it in this environment.
The problem I have is this. I actually think, because notice he talks about the years when Jankos was with the Heretics that had eventually Vetio, but before that it was like the bad one with Ebby and Ruby, and he was like, and if you remember, that was the last peak of like, he was still a really good player. But unfortunately, I think that year and the year following it, is why, even though he wants to do this move, it could never actually happen in reality. Like, I think that Jankos is already at the point in his career now where he has played so long. People forget this, bro. He was playing in Season 4. Like, he has played so long in the LEC now that I think someone like him will only come back if the team he is in can win the LEC and go international. By the way, I don't even think just go international load is enough. Like, it's not like he wants to just get that 3rd seed, go to Worlds, get his head smashed in, and then go, right, that was another year of my adult life. I think someone like him would only do it if he could be on like Carmine Corp and actually believe like, hey, maybe we could make like the semis if I fucking play my role right. Because he's just been and done everything. And this is why actually, by the way, if in sports you ever do find someone who is like a Kobe Bryant, Michael Schumacher type figure, if Djokovic, if someone really does have insane longevity where they're like super elite, they are, as the kids say, built different. There is just something about them that is utterly unique, because everyone I've met who's got anything about them that makes them a vaguely normal person, they hunger does get sated. And the difference is the novelty of when you're on the way up in your career of being in like the 5th best team, that novelty does not exist when you're 10 years deep. At that point in time, it just fucking sucks. And spoiler, I think the only reason professional sportsmen play so long is because they get enormous salaries and they don't know what the fuck they're going to do with their life afterwards, and they all have families, etc. I don't think they do it for the love of the game anymore. So in terms of the actual examples he gave though, my problem with these examples is similar, which is the GX one. I just don't know why Jankos is joining that team, mate. Look, for GX it might be better, but I don't know why because again, even if Jankos joins this thing and gets back into like, let's not be silly and say 2019, let's just say good form. Let's say the form he would have been in the Herex in 2023 or the end of G2, right? Even then, GX is probably still like fucking 4th or 5th in the league. They're not actually going to like win LEC. And as I say, they just go to Worlds to get banged out. The Fnatic one, the problem with that one is, look, that the other side of that one is like the joke would be Fnatic wouldn't want him now, mate. Like they want elite players today. But I also think that the area he's missed is this. One thing I've had to learn about League as well is you have to listen to what people say are the qualities of a player and don't add in one that they don't say. So if you listen, he nailed it there. If you ask someone what's Jankos amazing at his peak, his teammates would tell you really good communicator, he covers you, he sort of predicts what you're going to want him to do in the game, he's like fills in all the gaps. Notice they didn't at any point in time say he's the main like voice of the team who shot calls everything. They never say that part. So to me, I actually think the flaw of adding him to Fnatic is I don't think it actually fixes Fnatic's problem. And I think Fnatic's problem, by the way, is they don't have a shot caller. They just have a bunch of people who can contribute something occasionally, can make individual plays, and then you hope the coaching staff does the rest. I actually think what that team needs is someone who's like some El Yoya type guy who's like, listen, everyone, do X, Y, and Z now. And I don't think that's Jankos. So I'm not actually a bigger fan of this take. I think this one is one of those ones where you put on the rose-tinted glasses of the old Jankos, and you just imagine, it would be like me saying Perks could come back to season fucking 9 form and then play it tomorrow. It's like, probably not. And would any of those teams want him to? What are you going to say, Zaboutine? Go on.
I just wanted to say that Poby seems to be that guy. If you hear the comms and you ask people, he seems to have a lot of like macro calls about lane assignment that actually helps the team. Like, oh guys, like the team fight is one is like, guys, okay, I'm going top after, and I think duo lane should be mid. Like basic, you know, that helps. I think this will help Fnatic a lot. And Razork in interview this week said something interesting. He said, I feel like I can play my game again without feeling pressure, which I think like Poby is probably like very like just do your thing and do my thing.
You know what? There's the hot take. Poby better shot killer than Humanoid. There you go. There's the hot take at the end.
Do you think it's a
It sounds true. It sounds true though.
It is. He's a better shot caller. I do think Humanoid, he's very smart about the game, but he used it in a very negative way.
Yes, he did. He could. The problem, as far as I can tell, I've talked to a lot of his coaches and teammates. They all say the same things, Zaboutine. He is really smart and he knows all the macro moves, but they also will all agree. He seems like he's terrible at translating it to his teammates, though, so it's not really very useful, is it? It's like you'd have to like have Neuralink to his brain to know what the fuck he's thinking or something.
Yeah, he's using his knowledge.
David, how do you always do this? You come with a nuclear hot take and you don't even mean it.
It's all
like,
good.
bro, I couldn't believe you just said that.
Hey,
Poby is a better shot.
By the way,
caller
editor, that's the title. Poby is a better shot caller than Humanoid. There you go.
I mean, it is true. It is true. Because I do believe that Humanoid is using his knowledge to actually affect the review space pretty negatively because he's always able to pinpoint what went wrong in other roles, and he doesn't use it on stage to actually make proactive play that will suit him. and he's kind of just playing his game and relying on like his teammates making the right decision, because it costs a huge amount of energy to go the extra mile of being the main shot caller.
Yeah.
And I do not believe Humanoid is the type of guy
No.
with his relationship to being a pro that wants to do this extra mile. On the other hand, Poby, with very basic macro concepts, is able just to bring Fnatic to this cookie cutter macro, which is like all 3 lanes are pushed where they should be pushed. And so if someone makes a mistake, which they often do, at least the game's not over and no objective is given to the opponent, which makes them much more robust.